Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com for NFL and Major League Baseball and basketball picks. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Moments ago, the fight just ended between Golovkin and David Lemieux. Let me just give some initial thoughts. Now, I haven't read a single post-fight piece on this, right? I'm just giving you my thoughts. I've watched boxing a long time. The stoppage in this fight was absolutely ridiculous. Understand, David Lemieux, his nose is busted up. Okay, fine. He still wants to fight, right? Many guys have fought with broken noses. Doesn't look like he's having a problem breathing. Understand, both of his eyes are clear. He doesn't have a cut that's hindering his vision. Understand, he's throwing punches back at Golovkin. He's moving around. He has his balance. Yes, he's taking shots, but he's also throwing shots back. Now, I was absolutely mystified earlier in the fight when the referee actually stopped the action, brought Lemieux over to the corner. I thought, wow, is there tape off his glove or something? Then he called the doctor in to look. That was absolutely ridiculous, right? Understand that Golovkin hadn't been pushed to the distance in a fight for years, right? For years. Here you had a guy who was fighting back. I know he had been knocked down off a body shot, but he got back up and he's fighting back. He's losing the fight. He's losing convincingly. But he's about to take Golovkin where Golovkin hasn't gone for years. Why would you stop the fight at that point? Right? The fight stoppages, especially in championship fights like this, have been absolutely ridiculous of late, haven't they? Right? The stoppage here was absolutely ridiculous. I know the referee, Steve Willis, or whatever his name was, might have had the best of intentions. But you don't stop a fight where the other guy is fighting back, where the other guy has two good eyes, where the other guy doesn't have a broken arm or something, right? Lemieux doesn't even go down in the round in which the fight is stopped. I thought his recovery from the first knockdown was commendable. Keep in mind, too, Lemieux's on the canvas. He gets hit with an illegal shot from Golovkin. I don't think there was any evil intent with it. Right? I don't think Golovkin was trying to cheat, but it was an illegal shot, just like Roy Jones's shot on Montel Griffin, an earlier generation. Understand, those shots can get you disqualified. Those shots can end an unbeaten record. Just look at Roy Jones. That was Roy Jones's first loss. Now, if the referee is going to see Golovkin hit a guy who's on the canvas and let the fight continue, it's a little bit shocking that later, while that guy is fighting back, yes, he's losing the fight, but he's fighting back. We've all seen knockouts in the 11th and 12th rounds of fights, haven't we? We've all seen guys wilt late in fights, haven't we? Wasn't that Timothy Bradley on the verge of getting knocked out by Ruslan Provodnikov? Right? Wasn't that Timothy Bradley getting hit hard in the 12th round by Jesse Vargas recently? Right? I don't get the stoppage here. Did this referee not know that hard punches were going to land in this fight between these two sluggers? Ridiculous. Let me say this too. Just some other observations on the fight. Both guys gained at least 8 pounds after the weigh-in. Right? I'm not a big believer in guys who yo-yo weight in the fight game. I believe one of the secrets to Floyd Mayweather's success was the fact that Mayweather would weigh in pretty close to what he would weigh at the start of a fight, right? I believe when you yo-yo your weight, that hurts your punch resistance, both to your chin and your body. I know the fighters feel stronger. I'm just telling you, your body pays you back. You know, maybe when you hop on the scale, you weigh 168, 169, the day after a weigh-in where the weight limit's 160. Okay, great. You know, I'm sure you feel great. You're able to get dessert. You're laughing. You feel confident. I'm just telling you, this is a strenuous activity. It's an athletic event. Right? You start pushing your body, and your body then remembers, hey, you know, we were 8 pounds lighter yesterday. We were 9 pounds lighter yesterday. You're not going to have the stamina. You're not going to have the punch resistance. If you go back through boxing history, you're going to find out that a lot of the guys who got badly hurt in fights, right? Think Gerald McClellan, right? Lost a lot of weight to make weight, right? So, you can imagine, after I heard that these guys gained a bunch of pounds, right, that neither guy is really a middleweight, right? Both guys came in weighing, you know, around super middleweight, didn't they? In fact, I believe Lemieux couldn't even have made the super middleweight weight limit when he entered the ring. Think about that, right? You understood that somebody was probably going to get stopped in this fight. I know Golovkin looked, you know, great, in great shape when the fight is stopped. I'm just telling you, especially for fighters in their 30s, and let's be real here, that's where Golovkin is, right? I'm just telling you that a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience in those championship rounds, right, things could go off the rails. I'm very disappointed at the weight stoppage, at the fight stoppage. Just some general observations on the fight. What surprised me? I was very surprised by the crispness of Golovkin's jab. It was beautiful, right? He comes in, he is fighting a mid-range hooker, and he decides, okay, I'm going to throw a jab to prevent this guy from being mid-range, right? So you have Lemieux having all kinds of problems. With this jab, Lemieux couldn't set up shop in his comfort zone. I thought the jab was really the deciding factor in this fight. Let me also say this too. Lemieux just didn't have the elusiveness to get by the jab, right? That's an underappreciated skill in boxing. A Joe Frazier, a Mike Tyson, they would have ducked under that jab. You know what I mean? You know the guys who are slick coming inside, getting by jabs. Right now, Lemieux moves his upper body a lot, but he isn't able to, he doesn't have the balance to duck the jab, then get inside. He just doesn't. Let me also say this too, and this I thought was really one of the major deciding factors in this fight. Lemieux's a mid-range hooker, right? So I'm Golovkin, Lemieux's right here, right? Lemieux wants to be mid-range and throw hooks. That's his game. You didn't need mid-range here. I believe on Golovkin you need short range, right? You also need, and keep in mind, Lemieux's the shorter guy, but Lemieux is standing up a lot of the fight. He's not crouched. Lemieux obviously hasn't watched Rocky Marciano films or Joe Frazier films, right? He doesn't come in low and then come in and stay in. You want to beat Golovkin? You need to, in the words of Bernard Hopkins, you need to disarm him. You can disarm a puncher by smothering his punches, right? Lemieux is here a lot. In fact, he's not even here. He's not even mid-range. As Golovkin's pumping a jab, Lemieux's outside, right? He's too far outside because Lemieux likes to throw hooks. He needs to be closer to land his power shots. He doesn't have power from outside. So Golovkin's pumping a jab, right? Then when the jab breaks down because of the action, right? Guys are throwing punches. Golovkin decides to throw power shots. He's like, forget this jab. Let me go throw some, on my own power shots, right? Understand, when Lemieux gets in position to be offensive, he's mid-range. Now, people here laugh at the phrase mid-range hooker. I'm telling you, once you know a guy is mid-range, you understand it's going to be problematical for him against certain kinds of opponents, right? Golovkin, his trainer, Abel Sanchez, talks about how he personally feels Curtis Stevens, a shorter guy who can get inside, was a tougher matchup than David Lemieux, right? That's what Abel Sanchez was saying to members of the media. In fact, if you Google Kovalev, right? Kovalev showed up and actually sparred against Golovkin at Golovkin's camp. You're going to find out, believe it or not, that Abel Sanchez was disappointed with the sparring session because he wanted Kovalev to push his fighter. He wanted Kovalev to come up on Golovkin, push him, right? Instead, Kovalev, believe it or not, the light heavyweight champion, this is before he was light heavyweight champion, didn't push Golovkin hard enough, right? Because understand, the only way you're going to beat Golovkin, who has ring coverage, who can hit you from distance, right? Whether it's a jab or that dangerous right hand, right? And of course, mid-range, Golovkin has a nice left hook to the body. That's the punch that drops Lemieux, right? Understand, going backwards against Golovkin doesn't work. You're backing up into the jab and the right hand. Being mid-range on Golovkin doesn't work. You don't want to trade with a slugger. You need to disarm him. You need to get up on him. You want to see a good fight where a guy's punch gets taken away from him? Look at Bernard Hopkins smother Felix Trinidad's left hand. Right? You want to see a short guy dodging a great jab, getting inside, causing a great jabber problems? Look at Joe Frazier's first and third fights against Muhammad Ali. So here you had David Lemieux. I thought the strategy was wrong, but keep in mind, it's not really the strategy. It's the game that's wrong, right? Lemieux's a mid-range hooker. You need a guy who can fight short range. Think Andre Ward against Alan Green. That's the kind of guy you need. In fact, on this fight card, you actually had Chocolatito fighting against Brian Valoria. Now, he's a fascinating fighter, right? You actually notice that he has his hands up, and there are times where Gonzalez gets so close to Valoria that his gloves are touching Valoria as he's between punches. That's what you need, a guy who's able to get close, right? The close game that Chocolatito has, that's what Lemieux needed. Lemieux doesn't have that short-range game. He's a mid-range hooker. And let me just say, Golovkin, excellent fighter. I don't mean to diss him, but he's a little bit of an optical illusion, right? If you go away from him and you allow him to throw punches, right? You allow him to throw that right hand, you're going into danger. You need to smother him. Let me say this too. Golovkin's power drops when he's in transition. In other words, when he's on his back foot, he's not throwing power punches. Right? This is very different than Ray Robinson or James Toney. Right? He's not throwing power punches on his back foot. Right? Now, when he shifts from back foot to front foot, right, he's not as powerful. with the power. And I'm being critical here because, look, this isn't a fan club part of YouTube. We're trying to analyze fighters so we can get an edge on the casino. Right? If you can get Golovkin on his back foot, which is what Lemieux does in something like the 6th round, right? If you could get him on his back foot, when he returns to his front foot, it, requires a little bit of time for him to get going. Where he kills you is when he's been on his front foot for a while, when he follows you a little bit around the ring. The power on the punches seems to increase, right? Because then he's able to get his footing better and he's able to then really unload. Let me say this too. I know Lemieux was dropped off a left hook to the body that was beautiful. No question about it. But it seemed to me that Lemieux was able to take those lefts up top, wasn't he? Right? The right hand, it seems to me that a guy can duck away from Golovkin's right hand, can't he? Because Golovkin's big power is kind of straight, isn't it? He throws it at an angle, it curves, but it's not a cross, right? He's not throwing it and hitting you over here, right? He throws it at a little bit of an angle. Let's say that this is the power part of his right hand. And I know this video is inverted, right? But let's say this is the power part of his right hand, right? It seems to me that a guy who knows how to duck, who can move his upper body away from that right hand, again, we're talking about the bobbers and weavers of the world, right? Joe Frazier type fighters could come in and set up an angle where Golovkin wouldn't be able to hit you with his biggest power shot. Right? Looks to me like you could bend away. A Pernell Whitaker, if Pernell were middleweight, would be able to do it masterfully. Right? Because you saw him bend away from Oscar De La Hoya's left hand. Right? You know Golovkin's real ammunition is that right hand up top. Right? He also has the left hook down low. Right? We saw that tonight. But I question Golovkin's ability to really hurt you with that left hand from distance, apart from a jab. Right? So, let's just say, I congratulate Golovkin. He certainly was the better fighter. I'm not here saying Lemieux won the fight, far from it. Right? But I'll say that, Golovkin, not that good on his back foot. Well, put it this way, not the same fighter on his back foot. Right? Just not. Right? I thought it was interesting, too, that even though Lemieux is outgunned, you notice that a guy could be outgunned against Golovkin. And by outgunned, I mean unable to get by a jab. Losing every round. You're watching the rounds, you say, 10-9 round Golovkin, 10-9 round Golovkin, 10-9 round Golovkin. And yet Lemieux was able to keep going. Right? In other words, it didn't feel to me like I was watching prime George Foreman, prime Sonny Liston, prime Julian Jackson, prime Mike Tyson, where, if a fight breaks out and the guy's not getting hugged to death like Tyson was being hugged by Bone Crusher Smith, there's going to be big action in the first 4 rounds of a fight. Right? Some big punch somewhere is going to land. Here it was interesting because even while Lemieux is fumbling around with a less than optimal strategy, right? He's not smothering Golovkin. Right? Even as he's having problems with the jab, he's surviving the rounds. You just got the feeling that the spacing wasn't right for Golovkin. right? You got the feeling that Lemieux, who's not defensively gifted, let's face it, he's getting hit with a lot of these jabs, wasn't in the right position for Golovkin's right hand. And I thought you definitely saw it. Keep in mind, Lemieux does get cuffed with a few left hands. But you definitely saw that the punching power of Golovkin, while it's great, it's not as great as advertised. In other words, Lemieux gets hit with some shots. I know Lemieux had that funky hairstyle. I know his hair stands up, right, when he gets hit with shots. And then you have to ask yourself, wow, how's he able to take those shots? Right? Let's also say this too. Golovkin, and again, understand, I'm hardest on elite fighters. Right? You know, I've critiqued guys like Vladimir Klitschko, who I know are Hall of Famers. Right? Chocolatito, I thought Valoria started the fight well. Right? Started the fight like Lemieux should have fought this fight. Right? Very aggressive. And I thought Valoria landed some pretty good left hooks himself in that fight. Right? Just looking at Golovkin, I'll just say this. Right? It's interesting that Lemieux was able to hang around. Right? It seemed interesting in the 6th round when Golovkin was on his back foot. Let's just say I didn't think as Lemieux came forward he had to worry about stepping into the kind of trap that someone like Juan Manuel Marquez sets up. Right? You didn't get the feeling that Golovkin had the game to, you know, kind of like be on his back foot. Then as Lemieux comes in, suddenly turn the kind of right hand that ended the 4th Manny Pacquiao-Marquez fight. Right? So excellent win by Golovkin. I thought Lemieux fought the wrong fight and didn't have the short game, we'll call it. Right? Not mid-range, but short game. You know the kind of game I'm talking about. When a guy gets inside and is actually leaning on his opponent, is smothering punches, right? Literally has Tony Bellew, his last fight against Nathan Cleverly. That's a short game, right? I'd like to see someone do that to Golovkin. Right? Golovkin, mid-range, he's going to jab that mid-range hooker out of his comfort zone unless that mid-range hooker can dodge like Mike Tyson and get inside. Right? You need the Tony Bellew, Joe Frazier short game. To get inside of Golovkin's punches, let's be real. Right? Chocolatito had the much shorter punches than Golovkin. Right? If you don't have short punches and the guy's able to get inside, and if your best punch is really a right hand where you extend your hand, right, then what are you going to do? Right? Vladimir Klitschko hugs you. Right? Golovkin wasn't even forced to do that because he was facing a mid-range guy, not a short-range guy. Anyway, that's how I saw the fight. Let me hear from you. If you agree with me or if you disagree with me. If you feel the fight was properly stopped, that referee should jump in, even as an opponent, while he's taking punishment, is leaning, is bobbing, is alert, is reactive, has a big punch, has the kind of one-punch knockout power that could have turned the fight around if he had landed. Right? If you feel the fight was properly stopped, or if you feel that there's some other analysis here, right, that Golovkin actually has a great short game, right, that Kasim Uma against him years ago wasn't having success up on him right here, then I hope you leave those comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.